horror devil, right? Out there doing your thing. And I wanted to just check in with you guys and share a couple of realizations I had about some things around the whole thing about Halloween. So, what was your Halloween like when you were younger? I know for me, when I was kind of growing up, Halloween actually scared the hell out of me. And I think the reason why it kind of scared the hell out of me was because I grew up watching a ton of stuff that was not good for me. When my dad was around, I used to watch stuff that my dad would watch, and that was not good. And I remember some of the scary stuff when I did. I used to watch a lot of movies, and then obviously I used to hear stories, right, that witches are out and spirits are out. And so I became conditioned because of all these stories I heard at school, my schoolmates talking about it, my elders and my family members saying, hey, it's Halloween. So I became conditioned by people's perception that this is a scary time. Then it was reinforced because my dad used to watch movies like the Halloween series, right, with Jamie Curtis. I don't think many of you are old enough to remember. I am. Halloween with Jamie Curtis. There are a whole bunch of movies like that, and they were scary as heck. And I remember getting scared to bits watching these kind of movies, and it really, on Halloween, right? So it wasn't helping. And so as a result of this triple conditioning from people, from media, from TVs, I developed this perception that it's a very scary time, and it almost paralyzed me to want to even go out. I got to the stage where I didn't even want to go out on Halloween or anywhere near Halloween. I couldn't sleep properly because I was scared that something or someone might come in my room. It was scary. And listen, I kid you not, this went on till like my early teens. That's pretty bad, right? So I don't know what your story is, and maybe you can relate to this because you've had some kind of experience like this. Now, all these years later, I think the big realization for me is that obviously in this field, in spiritual development, in coaching, in personal development, the biggest realization I've come to realize is that it's our perception of a thing. It's our relationship with that thing. It's our vision of that thing that makes us fear it or embrace it. Does that make sense? Because I think for me, a lot of those things were scary. So for you, for example, I don't know how many of you have done a skydive out of a plane. So for me, skydiving from a plane would probably be really scary. For some of you, you've done it. For me, being punched in the face was pretty scary. The thought of fighting somebody was scary until I started sparring. For you, it might be something else, right? The thought of getting married would be scary until you actually get married. And so it is in life, right? Isn't it strange how we fear so many different things because of our ignorance or our misconception about those things? Ultimately, it's our perception, it's our relationship with that thing, it's how we've interpreted, it's our internal representation of a fact. And I love this acronym about fear. Fear, false evidence appearing as real. I'll say that again, F-E-A-R, fear, in false evidence appearing as real. Isn't it strange that that is so true? Maybe you can think of something in your life where you were scared about it. You had a big fear associated with it. And then later on, you found that actually the fear was really not that bad at all, right? I think we can all relate to this. I know I can, and I'm sure you can relate to something in your life that was of that nature. And I guess the point I'm trying to make in saying all this is, just like I was scared with Halloween and I had been conditioned and I was brought up to believe that it's a very scary time and it is to be feared, and it put me into this paralyzed state. Maybe there's something in your life right now that you're scared of doing, and maybe you're paralyzed by the fear of that thing. But actually that fear is false. It's F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing as real. Maybe that fear is unfounded. Maybe if you were to start to do that thing, you would find that it's not as scary as it, or as daunting as you initially thought it was. So I hope I'm kind of making sense. And if I'm rambling, it's because it's Thursday night and, the fog is kicking in a little bit, and it's wedding season. My nephew's getting married, so everybody's tired in the household. The point is, if we can start to change our relationship with that which we're scared of, then that's where we can make a shift. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. And it's funny, I was reflecting on different types of religions, urban spirituality, right? So I'm into the whole kind of spiritual side. It's funny how Western religions make God out to be somebody who's got to be feared. And maybe not just Western, but the Abrahamic traditions make out God in many ways that God is to be feared, right? You hear that's where the phrase comes from. To put the fear of God in somebody is that, right? It's a biblical thing that I am to be feared, it says in the Bible. And yet you compare that to, he's the God of retribution, the God of vengeance. I am the God of vengeance. It's a very Abrahamic biblical view of God. And yet if you look at the Eastern tradition, it's all about love. It's all about learning to love God. It's about learning to reconnect with God. It's learning to forgive ourselves. It's learning to recognize that love is everything. It is all. It is the totality of all that exists is love. It's the underlying basis of everything. And that's what the Eastern traditions are trying to teach. They're teaching love. They're talking about learning to create or reestablish a loving relationship with the divine. So I'm kind of rambling on a little bit because there's an important point here. It's about our perception again. If we are conditioned, or if we believe, which is not the truth, but if we believe, or if we're conditioned to believe that God is to be feared, then our relationship with the Supreme will be of that way. And if we are conditioned or taught or trained that actually this is a loving relationship, then we'll be a different way. And again, it boils down to our perception of that which we fear. If we can learn to modify and reframe the perception of the object of our fear, then there's a completely different shift in our energy. We start to create positive movement. Instead of sucking our energy, we actually start to raise our energy, because we can start to realize that actually the best way to overcome a fear is to face it. So I guess that's my point. And I'm sure that we hear this time and time again, right? We all hear this. This is so overheard, right? And yet we don't follow it, right? We all know the best way to conquer our fears is to go and do the thing that we fear, but we don't. So what's the solution? My personal thought on this is two things. One, keep reminding yourself that you want to face that thing that you fear, and recognize that your perception of that thing may not be the reality of what it is. That is to say, challenge your perception. And two, start to do it in baby steps. The thing that you fear, if you can, try to do it in small steps. So if it's like doing if for example, think about when you started to drive a car. You didn't start driving a car and be an expert, right? You had to go through a series of lessons to learn how to drive a car and then pass a test. Think about the first time, you did any activity, right? You may have been scared. Think about the times when those of you who've spoken on stage or who are public speakers. I know for me, I had to do that. I was dead scared of speaking on stage. There were all these years I couldn't think about being on stage, but after doing it on small stages and bigger stages, I began to do it. And maybe you can relate to this in your own way. So think about how you can address the thing that you fear in small baby steps and progressive steps, and see if that makes a difference. Anyway, so those are my two tips to see how we can all individually start to address the fears in our life. And hopefully that's practical and useful. I'd love to hear about your fears and how you're tackling them. I think that's a powerful thing at the moment. We don't speak up enough about our fears. So maybe start to share your fears here. Share what fears you have and leave some comments behind, and we'll share this. And hopefully, if enough of us share our fears here with potential solutions, then we'll start to find answers to this. Hope that's helpful. Don't be scared by Halloween.